All right, let's talk about one of the biggest names in technology, Microsoft Azure. In the next few minutes, we're going to pull back the curtain on what it is, how it actually works, and why it's become the quiet engine behind so much of our digital lives. Let's get right into it.
So to really get Azure, we have to understand the problem it was built to solve. And that story starts in a server room. Not too long ago, if you wanted to launch an app or a website, you needed a physical room packed with expensive hardware, blasting cold air, with a team of people just to keep the lights blinking.
Yeah, that old way, what we call on-premise, was all about capital expenditure, or CAPEX. You had to drop a ton of money up front before you even knew if your idea would work. The cloud completely flips that on its head. It's an OPEX, or operational expenditure model. The best analogy: it's the difference between buying an entire office building versus just renting a desk. You only pay for what you use, and you can grow or shrink in a snap.
So at its heart, that's all cloud computing really is. You're renting computer power. Instead of buying your own, you're tapping into Microsoft's massive global network of data centers. They handle all the messy physical stuff, the buildings, the electricity, the security, and you just access it all through the internet.
Now, Azure gives you options on how much you want to manage yourself. This is called the shared responsibility model. On one side, you've got infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. Think of this like leasing a car. You don't build it, but you're in charge of driving it. You manage the operating system and your apps. In the middle, there's platform as a service, or PaaS. Here, you just bring your app's code, and Azure handles the platform underneath. And on the far end, you have software as a service, or SaaS. Think Microsoft 365. You just use the software, Microsoft manages pretty much everything. Okay, so that's the why of the cloud. Now let's dig into the what. What are the actual Lego blocks that Azure gives you to build with? Well, it really just boils down to three main things.
First up, compute. This is the raw horsepower. It's the engine, the processing power. It's the brains behind whatever you're running in the cloud.
And this compute power comes in a few different flavors. You can get a full virtual machine, or a VM, which is basically your own private server that you have complete control over. Or you could use containers. These are lightweight, self-contained packages that make your app super efficient and easy to scale. And then there's the really futuristic stuff, Azure Functions. You just upload a small piece of code and it only runs when it's triggered by something. You literally pay only for the milliseconds your code is running. It's incredible.
So you have the brains, now you need the nervous system. That's networking. It's the secure fabric that connects all of your cloud resources to each other, to your users, and even back to your own offices. Here, you'll use things like virtual networks, or VNets, to create your own private, isolated corner of the Azure cloud. Load balancers are absolutely essential for keeping your services online. They spread incoming traffic across your servers so no single one gets overloaded. And for a top-tier connection, ExpressRoute gives you a private, high-speed highway directly from your office into Azure, completely bypassing the public internet. And the third pillar of our building blocks is storage. This one's pretty straightforward. It's the memory, the digital filing cabinet where all of your data is going to live. And just like everything else, you've got different types for different jobs. You've got blob storage for huge amounts of unstructured data, like all your images, videos, or log files. There's file storage, which acts just like a traditional shared network drive. And then there's disk storage, which gives you high-performance hard drives that you can attach right to your virtual machines. Okay, so you have all these incredibly powerful tools at your disposal: compute, networking, storage. The big question then becomes, how do you possibly keep track of it all without it becoming a total mess? Seriously, you have access to a global network of data centers at your fingertips. So how do you keep things in order? How do you enforce your company's rules? And, most importantly, how do you keep everything secure? Azure's answer is a really smart system. A clear hierarchy of control. At the very top, you have management groups, which can organize your whole company. Inside those, you have subscriptions, which handle billing and access. Inside those, you create resource groups to act as logical containers for a project. And finally, inside a resource group, you have your actual resources, the VMs, databases, and so on. This structure is key because you can apply policies and permissions at any level. And to actually manage this, you get a powerful set of tools. The Azure portal is your web-based command center for everything. Role-based access control, or RBAC, is crucial for security.
It lets you get super specific about who can do what. Azure Policy lets you create guardrails, making sure your teams stay compliant with company standards. And Azure Monitor is like your watchdog, keeping an eye on performance and letting you know if anything's wrong.
So, you've now seen the why, the what, and the how of Azure, and if any of this has sparked your interest and you're thinking, what's next? Well, there's a really great first step for you to take. It's the Azure 900 Azure Fundamentals Certification. And listen, this is not just for hardcore techies. It's really designed for anyone who wants to understand the cloud. Whether you're an executive, in sales, or just starting out in IT. It's the perfect way to get a solid foundational understanding of how all this works. And if you look at what's actually on the exam, it'll probably look pretty familiar. You'll see a big chunk on Azure architecture and services. That's the compute, networking, and storage we just talked about. And another big piece is on management and governance. It lines up perfectly with what we've covered, making it a fantastic way to solidify this knowledge.
And that's your quick primer on Microsoft Azure. We've seen how the cloud took us from physical server rooms to a global scalable platform that's really become the bedrock of all modern technology. It powers so much of what we do every day. So the only question left is, what will you build on it?